Good morning and welcome to Travels with Monkey Boy. Today we are on day 2 of our trip to Madagascar. I need to be kind to Madagascar. It's poor and it's spent most of its last 200 years being governed by women, the French, communists, and military dictators. So they are a bit muddled. But Madagascar just doesn't understand tourism. From a biotourism point, it is almost exactly like Costa Rica. Perfect weather, jungles, surrounded by rich oceans, crossed by raging rivers, unique flora and fauna. Yet Costa Rica gets 5 times as much tourism dollars as Madagascar. We are in a world where rich Westerners are willing to travel around the world and pay big money for unique experiences. How is it possible that Madagascar, with so many unique natural things, fails so dramatically selling it? Well, first, Madagascar makes it almost impossible on a 10-day trip to see the best things. The natural park where the Indri, the largest existing lemurs, remember the giant lemurs were eaten off by stupid humans 1,000 years ago, is very close to the third largest city in Madagascar, Andasabi. Remember, the capital is North Central. The second largest city and the main port for the country is on the East Coast. So you have a straight line for the three major population centers, the number one tourist site, and the main place to transport imports and exports. It is 84 miles, 150 kilometers roughly, from the capital to the national park, the third largest city, and another 100 to the second largest city and port. So, quiz at home. What is the number one thing that the government of Madagascar should invest in? How about a road? The 84 miles is a 5 hour drive. Note, that's not a typo. 5 hours to go 84 miles is 17 miles an hour. And it is the hardest 5 hours you can imagine. Have you ever had paint blended in a hardware store? You know where they open the can of white and then put in a little dye and then put it in a machine where it violently shakes the can? Well, we were in that machine for 5 hours. Apparently, at one point, there had actually been a road, but every half a mile there were potholes traversing the road that were knee deep and often filled with water. The road was wide enough for two cars to pass, but as there was often only one safe passage through the potholes, you had to wait your turn. There were also frequent broken down vehicles along the way, including trucks. More truck traffic than cars, as remember, this is the main road from port to capital. And at one point, we passed by a big truck crane that was meant to pull trucks out of potholes, but it had tipped over and blocked the road. Of course, that didn't pose as much of a problem here as it would in other places, since the idea of a road and off road had no real distinction. You also have many villagers alongside of the road with shovels who will put a little dirt in one of the holes, and then as you pass by, they put their hat out and look for payment for the work. I saw no one actually pay them, nor did I see any of the villagers actually filling the holes or any particular value to the little bit of dirt I saw in some of the holes. But it seems to be the system for repairing the roads. I did a bit of research and it costs about $5 million per mile to build a state-of-the-art highway. So $1 billion would build you an amazing highway from capital to national park to port. Madagascar has received $1 billion in aid per year for 20 years. And it never occurred to them to build a road? You know what Madagascar is investing? I swear I'm not making this up. With a grant of $150 million from France, and in order to reform and modernize the transportation system, Madagascar is building in the capital two cable car lines, each about 3 miles long. There are not cable cars bringing you up to some scenic site. No, this is the solution to their traffic congestion. They're paying this to a French cable car company and getting 274 cable cars, which each hold 4 people. There is no corruption like Franco-African corruption. Come on, Madagascar, do better. Then there is the airlines. As I said, There are three amazing spots in Madagascar that everyone should go to. The Indri lemurs in the national park, the baobab trees, and the labyrinth of stone in the west, and the glorious beaches and the little coastal islands. Well, you can't do all three in 10 days because it takes 2 full days just to drive the 1 hour to the stupid national park. And the flights to the west, which are about an hour, only happen every 3 days. Not three times a day, every 3 days. So even if I was willing to pay for an overpriced plane ticket to go see the amazing nature in the West, it just is logistically impossible to also do the islands. So given the option of one, lemurs, two, trees and rocks, three, beach, and you can only choose two, and this is our 20th wedding anniversary trip, and I'm hoping for a 21st, F the trees. To get to see the Indri lemurs from Tana, I arranged a tour in advance. I used a company called Tours by Local. We had great success in Rome years ago with this. I like the idea of an independent little operators that know and love their country and can unearth the magic on your own schedule, tailored to your needs. I tried it again in Madagascar. Madagascar doesn't understand tourism. First of all, the tour was very expensive for a 2-day tour, but it bragged about all the wildlife we would see, and that's what I wanted. Many of the tours from Tana featured 1-day trips to the national park, but as I said, it's a 5-hour drive each way, so the idea of 10 hours in the car to do a 1-hour hike seemed to be madness. This Tours by Locals guy offered a 2-day tour with several bonus stops along the way. It was $700 for 2 days, but it was a private tour and included a hotel near the park, so I justified it in my mind. Our guide was an affable local named Jean-Claude, who was from the west of the island, Bantu descent, and was a 7-day Adventist. 85% of Malagai are Christians, and he preferred to be called JC. I wrote JC in advance saying to divide the time up according to these two things: hikes in nature with a chance to see wild animals, and I don't want a zoo. Okay, I actually like zoos. I know that's very boomerish of me, but like I've said, I love nature, and seeing a giraffe in person, even under non-ideal situations, still is magical. But when one is paying thousands of dollars to go to an island of miracles, one wants an authentic experience. So the chance to see wildlife is what I'm paying for. And even if it's hard, long hike, late at night, etc., and even if we don't ultimately find it, the quest is a big part of it. JC acknowledged, and he was dutifully at our hotel at 8 a.m. with a fancy van and driver to start our grueling day. The first zoo we visited after spending 2 hours fully shaken on the road was the Madagascar Reptile Zoo. I would say that it was horrific in the way that one would imagine a reptile zoo in one of the poorest places on earth is horrific. But let's save the word for another day. This is called foreshadowing. The first enclosure was actually kind of cool. It was maybe the size of a small apartment, mesh walls, a mesh ceiling, and trees growing all around inside the little enclosure. The guide takes you through the little forest, and covering every tree and bush were chameleons, as you could see in the shot behind me. Chameleons are the weirdest lizards with their bi-directional eyes, changing skin color, horns, and body length tongues. Madagascar has something like 100 types of chameleons, and the enclosure had a few dozen from various spots around the island. And it was interesting to compare and contrast them and to trick them into extending their tongues to get grasshoppers impaled on sticks. It was fun to knock them off their perches with sticks and then watch them walk around. You could even pet them and other things like kill them. I'm not sure killing them was extra, but there was a dead one in the enclosure that the naturalist told us had probably died in a fight. If I was less honest, I would have just posted the amazing pictures we could take of these weird creatures. And indeed, from an Instagram world, this was the way to see chameleons. They're hard to find in nature because of their color-changing skin. And here we were guaranteed to be able to interact with some of the most amazing creatures on the planet, while at the same time feeling bad about being a human. The second enclosure was a pit holding a single mid-sized Nile crocodile, which is so ridiculous because the Nile is 3,000 miles away. And there are no crocodiles in Madagascar, which eliminates any pretext that this isn't a zoo. Yet Madagascar does now have some invasive crocodiles eating the lemurs. And the island used to have this amazing crocodile called the horned crocodile, which had two devil-like horns above its eyes. But of course, they were all killed and eaten in the great genocide 1,000 years ago, along with the Madagascar hippo, the elephant bird, the giant lemur, and giant fossa. Madagascar 1000 AD is my first stop when I get this time machine up and running. The third enclosure was the size of a large doghouse, and it had some colorful frogs in it, which were colorful and sad. The final enclosure was the size of the first, and this had random lizards and geckos. As we left, the ever cheerful Jean-Claude said, "Well, no, that wasn't really like a zoo, was it?" I had to agree it wasn't like a zoo. It was a zoo. The second stop came after 3 more hours on the road and was a zoo close to the national park. This was an interesting place because it was owned by a French guy. Interesting in that Madagascar does not allow foreigners to invest in Madagascar or own property. As the fourth poorest country in the world, their government has its eyes on first place. This guy apparently owned a mining company that strip mined tin, the silliest named metal. And after he wreaked his environmental havoc, he started a luxury resort near the national park. We got a brief tour of the glorious resort, which was on a river. The rooms were palatial, the grounds were a garden, and according to JC, they had not a single guest that night. There were half a dozen islands on the river, and on each island was a different kind of lemur. We got in a boat and had a guide paddle us around to the different islands. Remember, lemurs can't swim, and got to visit each island's inhabitants. They called this zoo the Lemurs Sanctuary. And it was pretty cool to walk amongst many different lemurs from different parts of Madagascar that we would not get to because of the idiotically bad road system. At the end of the tour, JC cheerfully told us that normally you could only go visit this zoo if you were staying at this luxury hotel, which he told us cost $100 a night. But because he had connections, we got to go visit it without staying there. He then took us to the squalid ruins of a hotel in the jungle that he had us staying at. No air conditioning, cold water shower, bugs in the room, a single flickering light illuminating the mosquito net covering the bed, all included free in our tour package. JC slept in his car, which seemed a wise choice. The final event of the day, something that I had been anticipating all day long and helped me tolerate the all zoo all the time tour, was the nighttime national park safari. Anyone that's known me more than an hour has heard my nighttime Amazon jungle safari, so I have amazing experience with this kind of thing. As it became dark around 7 p.m., JC introduced us to the local naturalist who would take us on this national park safari. But in advance, he told us we wouldn't actually be able to go into the national park as it was closed at night. And indeed, we would just be walking on the lone paved street outside the park, connecting two local villages. As we walked on the road, dogs barking, dodging cars, buses, and motorbikes, the guide would shine his flashlight into the trees and periodically find a lemur here and a chameleon there. We were not the only group that was doing this nighttime national park tour. It was like Halloween with groups of people walking down the street at night, flashing lights into the bushes. It might have been scary if there was anything in Madagascar that could kill you. There are no poison snakes or poison spiders, and the only carnivore, the fossa, had basically been eaten to extinction. So again, the only thing to fear in Madagascar is the humans. Honestly, if they had wanted to create a tour to make me angry, they couldn't have done better than this. The day was pretty much a disaster, but tomorrow we had 5 hours planned in the national park. There were a million stars above our head, and I was walking hand in hand with my love, so I abided. Okay, that's the story. Let me share with you the map. Here we go. And zoom out so you remember where we're at. Here's Kuwait from where we started. Kenya's down here, and boom, we came to Madagascar. Stayed that first night in Antananarivo. Antananarivo. You can see that name right there. Good luck at pronouncing that. And as I said, here's the capital. Why they put the capital in the middle of the country seems weird. Here is the major port, second largest city, and here's the major tourist attraction in all of Madagascar. And this distance is only 84 miles. If you drove on a good highway, it's an hour and 15 minutes maximum. And it took us 5 hours of chaotic road. So Madagascar, always crazy. And let me take you to some pictures. Oops, that's not it. Okay. Here we go. All right, Madagascar and their French bottler got in a fight with Coca-Cola a few years ago, and Coca-Cola uttering the words hopeless left the country. Now you can buy World Cola, which is not bad, but they had no diet World Cola. No Coke, no Pepsi, no RC, nothing in the whole country except World Cola. These are the trees that we didn't get to see, the baobab trees that were in the west. This is the valley of the baobab trees, supposed to be one of the great wonders of the world, but plane only every 3 days from the capital. This is what Madagascar is spending their highway funds on. Idiots. Here's the labyrinth of stone, also close to the baobab trees. It almost makes me want to go back again to Madagascar, but I'm sure it would have been terrible tourism. This used to be the rivers of Madagascar until people ate them. That's the horned crocodile. These guys were prominently featured in the movie. That's that goofy little big-eyed lemur. Here's a mouse lemur. There is a forest floor version somewhere on the island, even smaller than this one. Showing off human version. Lemurs showing us a thing or two about Instagram pictures. The lemurs were not afraid of us as we were of them. It was kind of cool paddling between the islands. I mean, for basically a zoo, it was pretty cool. Stupid movie. A whole troop of these guys came down to visit us. Remember, there's like 100 different varieties of lemurs. I love their eyes. This guy is from the north, a 22-hour drive from what the guidebook says. It was the rainy season in Madagascar, which created lots of waterfalls. They were on the ground, in the trees, chameleons everywhere. But we had to go to a zoo to see them. Males have horns like rhinos, females less horny. The colors are amazing. The hands are cool too. Look at how pretty that guy is. They go down the trees head first. Look at that tongue. Like the poison dart frogs from Panama, except not poison. Here's the little guys in orange. Nature is crazy. Why do we waste our time at Disney when nature is so amazing? This is the tomato frog that creates a red goo when threatened. Do not threaten this guy. This is the giraffe bug. It's got a long neck. We saw one of these guys out near our hotel. It's called a dead leaf gecko. Here's a very sad chameleon. Here's an ugly chameleon. Here is a leaf-nosed snake. Here is a moon moth. We saw these at night too, but hard to take a picture at night. They even had the disgusting millipedes. And that is it for the pictures. Okay, guys, thanks for sharing the day with me. Tomorrow we'll do day 3.